Hey guys. Um, so as I'm going through this transformation, right, it's ups and downs, zigzags all over the place, reflecting on the past, but not dwelling in it, which I'm getting much better at actually. Um, it's definitely shifting how my days go, right? Like I think about it, I process it, I let it go. Uh, and it's a big change. I used to dwell on it, right? I used to beat myself up over it and not doing it anymore. So that's a beautiful thing. Um, what I wanted to talk about today, because I've really been thinking about this since yesterday's event, yesterday morning, right? I'm a true empath. I've always been one. I've always known that I was one, even since I was a little kid. And I've talked about it many times, right? Like I'd go into classes even 5 or 6 years old, and I'd absorb everyone else's emotions, freak out, and go into overwhelm mode and just start crying, right? Um, all the things that came with that, the night terrors, everything else that I went through. Um, everything that came from it, right? Like it's I went to bed till 9, I think. Like, I mean, it was just horrific in many times. It was so overwhelming, and you combine that with the emotional issues that I have that stem from my childhood, which is abandonment issues, my insecurities, my shames, everything else that I've been working on at the same time, right? Driving my self-worth low. And then I also have an amazing amount of intuition. The issue is, what I've realized today, like truly today, is I've always leaned in with my heart and followed my empath, but I haven't really allowed my intuition to guide me. My intuition, for some reason, I've always doubted it and questioned it. But once I'm done with a circumstance, situation, business, personal, my soon to be ex wife, no matter what it is, right? Like, I started realizing all the warning signs. I just didn't absorb them and allow them to sink in because I always want to see the best in people, right? Like when I look at somebody, I see their best and who they can become if they choose to. And it becomes a lot for people to live up to, right? Because I almost put them on a pedestal of who they can be. Now, don't get me wrong, I go out of my way to try and help them become their best selves as well. Um, so it's not like I just say, this is what you can be, but I also say, this is if you want to strive for something, this is what you can strive for. This is how you're going to get there, and I'll help you get there, right? Like, I mean, I look at those things, and you know, like throughout my life, I've always been burnt, been taken advantage of, been manipulated, lied to an enormous amount of times. Even though I knew that there were lies, I allowed it to be, and just let things be because I like to give people their chance to choose what direction they want to go with things. The only issue with that is it makes me very susceptible to one getting hurt, two getting burned, two getting, like all the things that come with that. Um, so as I'm going through these realizations, I'm starting to educate myself on my past and starting to realize that I need to lean in with my empathy, my empathic abilities, and but also allow my intuition to guide me, um, and run it right because when I allow my empathic abilities to run the show, I'm more liable to get hurt in the long run, and I'm more at risk of worst case scenario. If I allow my intuition to do what it does, then there's a good chance that it will protect me from those circumstances. So this is going to be a delicate balance as I start trying to put this into practice. Um, and yes, I'm extremely detail oriented. I'm very OCD when it comes to details. I catch every single nuance, every single detail. And again, it consumes me a lot of times, and it almost becomes an obsession with certain circumstances because I try to understand where I went wrong and what moment I allowed it to get out of hand, right? What moment did it go from this could be bad for me? I'm ignoring my intuition, even though I know what the reality is, to where it just flipped and it went to this is horrible for me, but I'm going to allow it to keep happening because of my low self worth, low self esteem, abandonment issues, and everything else, right? And that goes across business and personal. And I've always done that, right? I always allowed it to get to that next level, to get out of hand. What I'm looking to do going forward is to stop myself from that. What I'm working on business wise is extremely large ambitions, and I really do believe that the world will benefit from them. But the only way that's going to happen is if I can manage my my empathy to a point that my intuition runs the show, right? And I think with understanding it, I will have a much better chance of being able to do so. So as I'm identifying these things and as I'm going into these details and as I'm understanding, what role I played, what role I allowed to be played against me, what role, you know, where did it, where did the switch go from, you know, any circumstance? Where did it go from good intent to the wrong path being chosen and then me getting manipulated, taken advantage of, and used? And as I sit back and I identify these circumstances, I'm really starting to see it clearly now, right? Like I'm able to identify exactly when it switched. Um, it, People are, including me, right? We're scared to be our best selves because it goes against our human nature to get out of that comfort zone and push forward. Um, and it's not my place to call anyone else out on what they do, and I never will because it's just not worth it. But, you know, eventually the truth comes out, right? Because eventually somebody gets scorned or somebody gets hurt to a point that, it just comes out, right? I don't know if all these people that do bad things on a regular basis that, certain circumstances started out that way or if they just transitioned that way over time. Um, and because power, circumstance, whatever it is, was given to them in one way or another, then it just became almost like an addiction to be able to hold on to that power. Um, I mean, it happens in the entertainment industry all the time, right? So, and I think there's certain industries where that is very prevalent, and I think there's certain industries where it's not, and certain aspects of lives and certain people situations, right? Like, I mean, I've been sober 14 years. I got sober in the rooms, and I watched it many times, right? How people would just take advantage of somebody who's new in sobriety, and it made the rooms toxic and dangerous. And one of the reasons I stopped going to the rooms, and I found my own way to stay sober, which is through helping people, helping as many people as possible. And now recently dealing with my issues, which is probably what led to that sickness, right? To wanting to fill the void. If I fill the void, I'm not saying I'm cured and I'm going to go start drinking or doing drugs again because I'm not, because I don't want them, right? And I don't want that to be a part of my life, and I don't want it around my kids' lives. They saw enough with what they just went through that they don't need to see that ever again. Um, but I do. The more I think about this, right, this awakening, this transformation, this whatever you want to call it, right? For me, it's either round two or round three, depending on how you look at the first two go arounds. Um, it's a much different scenario this time. I truly have people around me that have no vested interest in anything that I do. They just want to see the best for me. And I don't think I've ever had a circle like that. And if I did, I didn't realize I did. Like, I mean, again, my childhood was rough, but I also made it harder. My parents did the best they could. They weren't bad people. They just didn't understand me, right? I was different than most kids. I was an extremely sensitive male, right? Which growing up in the 80s, 90s, really wasn't prevalent or very popular and was considered an outsider or outcast back then. Um, so I feel like over time, I've gotten to the point where I'm just starting to be comfortable in my own skin. And I'm very happy today. And I had a good, peaceful day. I had lots of stuff just fall in place, lots of stuff just become easier, right? And I did a post on LinkedIn today about swimming upstream. Now with the algorithm all messed up, many people don't see my posts, or many people don't see many posts. But that's fine as well. But I did this post, right, and I went into a few different scenarios about how I always was swimming upstream, and the reality was I was always going against the stream, always trying to be that salmon, overtaking that upstream journey because I didn't understand how not to, right? And I've heard so many people, and I've absorbed so much information from so many people, and great people, right? Whether Gary Vee, David Meltzer, Ed Milet, and so on, right? Like, I mean, those are the three main ones that I always followed that over the last couple of years that had a major impact depending on the phase that I was in at that point. Gary Vee with the sports cards is interesting, and Pokemon cards just because as a kid I loved that stuff, right? I did that too. I would go to school. I mean, odds are is I gave away the cards because I didn't care about selling it. I never cared about money. Money was never my driving force. It was seeing other people happy, right? Like I'd go buy a box and turn around, I'd take my lawnmower, mowing money or whatever it was. I'd go buy a box and bring them to school and give them to kids that were Pittsburgh fans, or I think his name was Adam Myers, if I remember, but who knows? That was a long time ago. And other teams and other sports, right? It was just how I did things. I always wanted to see others happy. Maybe because I was so miserable. I don't know, right? Like, and I always got along with everybody, but I always decided to hang out with the kids that were considered dorks, considered geeks, considered tech nerds, right? Whatever it was at the time. I mean, tech nerds back then was a little different because the computers weren't what they are. But I always hung out with those kids because I felt, even though I was an outsider, I felt more like I belonged, right? And even in high school, like I would, I was always a part of any group I chose to be, but I always chose to hang out with the other outcasts because I just enjoyed the outcasts. I enjoyed being an outcast because I never had to commit to any one group. I didn't have to, I was able to just be a chameleon and go from situation to situation, right? I never had to be my real self. So that also made it better because I was just never comfortable with my skin. Now keep in mind at that time in high school, I was using drugs, drinking, selling drugs, selling cigarettes. At that point, I was selling anything I could. But it was a different circumstance then, right? Like my life, I hid and I hid and I hid, and always found ways to hide. Um, and even being sober the last 14 years, I always found ways to hide. Even my marriage was a way for me to hide because I was never happy in it. I never wanted to be in it. I don't think my soon-to-be ex-wife ever wanted to be in it. I wanted to get married. I wanted to have kids, and that was my goal, right? So rather than being uncomfortable and finding somebody who was good for me and her finding somebody that was good for her, we both took the easy way out, and that's just what happened. So I think what I'm really starting to realize is a lot of things that I always considered weaknesses are really strengths. I just have to manage them and handle them a little bit differently. And I need to understand them better and do more research and get to my bottom line of I'm comfortable in my own skin. I'm happy with who I am. I'm happy with where I'm at. Those that use and take advantage and manipulate me, that's fine because it's going to happen. And I have to take those chances to find the people that are worth keeping in my life. Um, and what will usually happen in life is the people that want to do those things to you usually take what they want and leave. They find their own way out, right? Um, because why do they want to be around somebody that's happier or somebody that's motivated or pushing forward when the easy way is to never have to fully commit or engage to that life, right? They get to play double-sided, both lives, two lives, multiple lives, right? They have a front facing and then they have a background. And for some people it's easier to handle life that way. For some people it's the only way they know how. Um, and I don't know if it's necessarily that they're damaged, it's just that they don't handle themselves appropriately. They're not willing to look at themselves and own it. They're not willing to, handle those situations. And I got to be honest, because of how I lived my life, I don't judge them. I don't blame them, right? Because for so many years, I did things wrong. For so many years, I handled every situation wrong, every circumstance wrong. Um, so how can I judge anybody, right? And I'm getting to a point where I'm not judging myself, which now is giving me the freedom not to judge anyone else. You know, um, it's a different place to be, and it's a great place to work towards, right? Because Gary Vee always says, judgment-free life makes you, creates happiness, gratitude. Gratitude. David Meltzer talks about it all the time. Annie Lieb talks about it all the time, whether it's gratitude or judgment-free and friendships and trying to build those relationships, right? Like these are people that inspire me and people that lift me up and people that show me a better way in life. And I'm forever grateful for what they've passed along, right? They're talented, they're skilled, they're knowledgeable, and they all have amazing qualities and they want to help. Um, which is great, right? Because you've heard the stories, whether it's Gary Vee and he started from nothing and worked his way up and then gave it all back to his family and then started over again and worked his way up and now he's bigger than ever. So, and he was always giving back. He's always been that same person. David Meltzer had everything, lost it, and now made it all back. Um, and everybody has their own story. You can't judge a story, right? Because the story is what made them who they are. It doesn't matter where you came from, whether you could be in jail for murder, right? And be there for 25, 30 years and come out and be the best human being on the planet and turn around and save thousands of lives from making the same mistakes. So who am I to judge anyone, right? If they serve their penance, do their time, try and make it right, and then dedicate their lives to helping others. I'm not saying that what they did wrong is worth it because there's a lot of carnage left behind, no matter what the circumstance was. Sorry, when I talk a lot, sometimes I just need water. Um, but I feel like we need more empathy in this world. We need more compassion, self-compassion, helping others, and just self-awareness, right? Self-honesty, and then honesty outward. And I feel like that's the toughest thing to do. There's not many people that share this journey, that share this transformation journey, because honestly, it is extremely painful. It's extremely emotional. I'm all over the place. Some days I'm on here and I'm choking, I'm crying. Some days I'm on here and I'm happy as can be, right? And your outward face is showing that you're all over the place. You're bipolar, you're nuts, right? But truth is, I'm going through an enormous process, right? And I'm going through an enormous change. And I'm exercising, I'm feeling better, I'm eating better, I'm little by little coming off my prescriptions and taking care of myself, which somehow I've got to manage my blood pressure better. So I got to work on that too. I got to talk to the doctor this week. Um, you know, I think that there's a better way, right? And I feel like by sharing this journey, it can give others the reality of the journey. It can outwardly show them what they would go through so that they are more mentally prepared to start it and complete it rather than start it, it gets hard, and then giving up, right? Because I've done this journey before. I never did the physical part, and I really never dealt with the mental part either. I was just doing the spiritual side. And I've got very far. But I think because I wasn't doing the other pieces, right? Physical, mental, well, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Right now, I'm working on all four. So maybe there's another part that I'm missing. I don't know. If Kenny's out there, he might have an idea. Um, but, you know, working on all the pieces, excuse me, sorry. Working on all the pieces, it's filling that void so much faster. It's filling me up with who I really am, right? I'm filling myself. I'm not looking for validation because now don't get me wrong, I have people that I ask to hold me accountable in certain ways, right? Like, Matt Gagnon is an amazing, and he's my friend, and he's a great coach, and he helps me so much with certain ways and certain things, right? And then you have Sherry Luke, who does amazing stuff for me with my thought process and relating to me on that level, because she's like an example, right? She's a living example that I was able to emulate, and then I pull pieces from so many people. There are so many amazing people out there that I pull pieces from, right? You have the Abachis, which are unbelievably amazing human beings. You have Brian Schulman, right? And it's funny, right? Like I called him today about my videos because I got insecure because of the transformation and everything that I'm questioning. And so I called him about those. It's just funny. You find people that can relate to you on certain aspects of your life. And I think it's important not to be scared to have different people for different pieces, right? I think it's actually in some way a benefit because you're lightening the load on others, right, that are willing to help you. But then you're also going to the subject matter expert that you can relate to in that way and that you get along with, and that, you don't have to, I'm not going to, you know, um, Matt or Sherry for video advice. I'm going to them for their specialties, and I'm going to Brian for his video advice because that's his specialty. And it's not that I'm disqualifying them for other things, but these are people that I hold near and dear to my heart. And I want to make sure that when I'm doing it, I'm doing things for the right reason. When I'm doing it, I want to know that I'm doing the best I can, because that's so important, right? When I go to sleep at night, this last period of time, I go to bed now knowing that I did the best I could that day. And it is the most peaceful thing in the world. Now, keep in mind, doesn't mean my mind doesn't race, doesn't mean that my mind doesn't go nuts, doesn't mean that I don't have crazy stuff flying through it all day and all night. But what it does mean is once I meditate, do other things, go to sleep, I actually sleep and I feel peaceful. And yes, I still wake up from my crazy dreams. Yes, I still have the lucid, vivid, nutty, all over the place, almost like real life dreams about all different scenarios in life. Um, but I don't wake up in chaos. At least once I do my process in the morning, once I do my routine. Waking up a little early, I'm a little nuts, and my mind needs to sort itself out from the dreams. Um, but overall, it's a much better way, right? Because I wake up at peace. Yes, my mind's a little nuts, and yes, I probably should stick to not communicating to people first thing in the morning, other than, liking posts, go back to my activity, and then go back and comment on them, right? Which is how I do things, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever it is. And now that I have notifications off on pretty much every app on my phone, um, I'm also finding a lot more peace, right? I don't feel like I have to have it in my hand. I don't want it in my hand because it's just a weight, right? Um, it's not worth keeping it in my hand anymore. So I just put it down and I'm present. I mean, I watched a movie with the kids today. I hung out with Sid for a few hours, who's feeling better but still has a little head cold. Um, I danced with Sid today, right? Like that was crazy. It was awesome. It was just a great day. Now, granted, it was raining again all day. Tomorrow, I think it rains too, but then it starts cooling down a little bit. So I got to try and get them outside a few days this week in between school, um, which is work at its own pace. So I should be able to. It's this this new way, this new routine, this new life that I'm creating for myself. Again, I'm going to say it. 2020 is the best year of my life, and I know it's crazy, and I know that it's tragic, and I know that me being stranded and me being alone and having to deal with all this by myself adds so much more stress and aggravation to my life. But at the same time, it's giving me this window to create the best life possible for myself and my kids. Man, I got to start taking my contacts out earlier. Maybe do these with my glasses on. My eyes are dried out to no end. They've been in since 4:30, I think. Anyway, um, I don't know. I mean, I know that I'm doing the right thing, right? And even when I make my mistakes, I don't go nuts over it. It's a mistake. It happens. I'm sorry. I apologize. It won't happen again. That's it. like I don't harp on it. I don't dwell on it. Because you know what? I can't take it back anyway, so who cares? I just move forward. I just I look for the better ways to express myself, the better ways to move forward, the better ways to do the right thing. And as long as I keep doing that, then everything else works itself out. And I'm going to cut it short because my contacts are really getting dried out and my eyes are like whatever. I can't even see how much time I've been on. But you know, it was an amazing day, and I'm so excited for tomorrow. I really am. But I'm even more excited, for the next half an hour, 40 minutes to myself before I go to sleep. And I hope you guys all had an amazing day also. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out and I'll be here. Thank you very much and have a great night, everybody.